it going, everyone? Very excited for this episode. What time is it? Game time. I've wanted to say that for a while. I'm like, where can I get that in? I was going to do it with Kong, but like, nope, I'm going to do it beforehand. I'm going to set the stage. I'm going to anchor us to a very exciting episode of the RHMax.tv show today. Very excited. Got a lot of cool stuff to go through. Talk about macros a bit. PulseChain, of course. We got a HEX, a lot of different commentaries, some pretty cool tweets to pull up too. SAC, we got some interesting SAC tweet to talk about as well. The SAC wallet. What happens if Ethereum, does these things? We get $3 billion, like a lot of this stuff too. So very cool episode. I'm very excited. Always, as always, me and Kong always have great episodes to get into it. So without further ado, we're gonna jump right in. Welcome back to the channel, Crypto Kong.
What's going on? How's everyone doing?
I think everyone's excited. They want green candles, but they have no expectations. You might say that, or
that's
from
right.
time to time they have expectations. We'll say that.
We were talking earlier, like how crypto, like in such a short time frame, like so many things will happen, right? So like we usually do our monthly streams, but in between it's like an entire like 90 days worth of stuff or something. So
yeah,
I mean, this
and
stuff moves quick.
A lot of times we don't even talk in that period, or like barely talk in that period. And then, if you get a day or two, so like yesterday, I was like, oh crap, I got Kong on tomorrow. I totally forgot to talk to him this weekend because we've been doing Mondays too. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And that's why I messaged you and you're like, okay, good, we're still on. But like in that time period, there's so much to talk about. Like there's so much either new stuff happening today, as we were talking about, or there's just in general, it's not things have changed so much. It's just that you can form a lot of different perspectives based on the different things that have happened in that time period. And that's what makes for, like good, interesting, because you come from it from a perspective. I come from it from a perspective as well. And like when we figure out what to talk about, there's always something that we can both like kind of like we're both very interested in or can provide value on. And I think that so make these shows good, like the commentary on the different stuff. They're interesting to people actually want to see this stuff. And yeah, I think that's why these shows are so good.
One thing I've been looking at too is it's like the overall like macro in crypto, and like, especially like within the past, like even the past 30 days, like how fast sort of everyone's kind of turned around. Like there's many antics in our ecosystem. Like they're a bit entertaining. Like we have very good memes and stuff like this to like showcase events. Like you pretty much sum it up just like scrolling through Twitter memes. But yeah, overall, like the market, it's weird. Like everyone, they turn around on a dime. Like if BlackRock isn't currently buying their bigs at the exact like very moment, then they're bearish. So yeah, it's a little bit weird how everyone flips. But
yeah, flips, and you just see like this thing will be, it always happens with the drama and stuff too. It's always, everyone's like, not everyone, like the people participating in the drama are very outraged for like a day, 2 days, 3 days. And then there's something else that comes along, either good or bad, that takes all the attention. And it's like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't, maybe that emotional response, I don't know if anyone does like retrospective on these things, but it's like you always see, there's meme coin of the week where your threads just get flooded with whatever particular coin somebody bought at the moment that they want to go and like advertise. Or there's like this drama of the week thing that happened that everyone wants to shout about because they're really upset and they really care about it at this moment and they probably won't later. Or there's this really good thing that's like, oh, okay, that's kind of good, but is that good? I'm not sure. And the things in between is what I like to talk about on the show, the things that actually matter that are not many people are talking about, where they can't even talk about because they don't have, either enough experience in that direction or enough technical skills to talk about it otherwise. That kind of middle area where it's like just interesting enough where, it could use expounded on, it could use like more information on. And I think that's the sweet spot, at least for a lot of good content out there. But I want to hit. Go ahead. I was just going to say on Fox Monitor here brought up the very timely, maybe we'll bring it up later too, the SEC loggers deal. I saw that just a little bit ago. Some lawyers resigned. I think that was in regards to that's a D-Box case or so where it just got totally messed up. But Fox Monitor that. And the lawyers are, I actually thought I read something else because I saw a few tweets on this recently about maybe this, it was Money Gang. I saw just a few minutes ago about maybe it's happening. Maybe they're finally coming down. Maybe they're crumbling. What do you think in general for just the accountability when mistakes are made and it's, costing people's bags or otherwise? Like, with the SEC and enforcement and government stuff like that in parallel with the Richard case going on and all the 11 Chads and Chadettes we have like working on that behalf and how it's trending right now. What do you think about the election side? And do you think we'll see a betterment of it when people keep seeing all the just like not the chasing of value out of town? I'll call it that. It keeps happening.
So what I do think is it is a bit weird. Like I think the SEC's job is to protect investors, right? So if people are getting their bags hurt directly or indirectly, sort of from the SEC's interventions, and it's a little bit like counterintuitive. Like what exactly are they trying to do? Like are they actually accomplishing the goal of their agency or whatever, like whatever they're up to? So I think it's a bit weird. I really hope things do get better, and I think crypto is kind of in a weird spot where it's like it's so new, and I think maybe a lot of these judges like maybe they're a bit older and they don't know as much about crypto. Like if you go and explain like the newest technology to your elderly family member, right, they might not pick up on it right away. So I think the judges like we'll see what happens, and especially with the people complaining and stuff like this. Like I think I hopefully we can start to see some interventions with the SEC. Especially I saw I can't remember who the tweet was from, but Sandy, I think it was Sandy something. Like maybe I can't exactly remember, but she was talking about how the Richard Hart case looks good just because of the jurisdiction issue. And that's one thing about the SEC is it seems like they're overstepping their boundaries in a lot of way, whether it's just like United States securities or whether it's just securities in general. Like it seems like they're trying to like rein their power on as much things as possible where like maybe they don't actually have authority in these areas. So it'll be interesting to see how these sort of things play out. But it is interesting how the SEC's job or maybe their goal is to protect investors' funds, but maybe they haven't done such a great job at that as of recently at all.
Yeah,
So
there's plenty of examples to point to that were caught or SEC approved or otherwise, and plenty of examples to point to that are just, hey, like what are you talking about? Like this is not something that should be pursued. There's no scam going on here. And in between, I'm sure there's a few cases where they probably did a good job somewhere. But it's if you keep going down the road of it's almost like they're testing their limits. Like, okay, what can we do? Like, what are they actually going to push back on? And that's what's so important for countries to have and citizens who have the ability to push back against the government to say, hey, no, like I see what you're doing, but this is you're in the wrong place. You're overstepping your boundaries, and again, we want a fair shot at this thing and stop flooding our bags for no good reason. So at least we have some ability to push back. And again, we got a billionaire genius founder guy who hired a bunch of lawyers that seem to be doing a really good job. If you haven't read the motion to dismiss, anyone out there, it is a work of art. I got it printed out. I still got to fully go through it because I want to fully appreciate the entire body of work. But just a few bits that I've read so far, it's like, man, it's I don't know how it could get any better. I think we got the best possible chance there is to fight for true DeFi, to fight for a rights to transact, to fight for all those things that's going on. So
it's almost like the SEC couldn't have picked a worse opponent if they wanted to win, or maybe they could have. But like Richard Hart's like the one guy like maybe like your first impression isn't like a genius founder billionaire guy, but once you pay attention, you can actually see like maybe this guy knows something about something or like a thing or two about a thing or two. So definitely like the SEC and the Richard case is going to be extremely interesting to watch, and I hope it sets some sort of precedent in crypto where like it goes to show like the SEC's overstepping their boundaries, and like Richard Hart was right. That's the saying. So
hashtag Richard Hart was right. Yeah. It's funny. It's almost like imagine it's like the SEC is like the bully in the yard, and Richard is like the kid over there. It just has like wearing Gucci, wearing Louis Vuitton or whatever, and they're like, oh, this is easy target.
Easy
Let's go beat this one up, and he just like totally just wins everything, and yeah, just totally wins. We will win, right? So, anyways, Bitcoin, you got anything to present? What do you want to talk about as far as macros go? I know you want to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we'll kick it off there and get into PulseChain after that.
yeah, I'll pull up my screen here as well. Go to just find the right screen as well. think this should be good. So I'm gonna share just a couple of macro things. Obviously, just like fear and greed index. This is like I don't know if this is the best indicator to base your investment thesis off of, but this just goes to show like maybe macro sentiment right now. And if you were paying attention, like this was in greed, like not even too long ago. So we've really flipped. And another thing is like I don't know how accurate or how good of a source CNN is, but just like pull this one up here. It's all good. But yeah, we're in fear, as well as if we pull up the crypto bubbles, you can sort of see like I need to share my screen actually. Let me pull this up. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, if we pull up the crypto bubbles, we can actually see that many of the things are down. Like if you have like the sort of survivorship bias, you can pick out like, oh, this coin went up 351%, this coin went up 84%, and this coin went up 52%, right? But if you looking around, most of everything is down. And yeah, this is on the month. So even if you check this, like I guess right when we had those big dips, like couple days ago, I don't know if that was a week ago by now, but once we had those big dips coming in, like it was pretty crazy, like red all across the board. So it's not just like really PulseChain getting thrashed, I guess you could say. Like it's pretty much across the board where you could see like a ton of cryptos sort of bleeding out a little bit. Another thing is too is PulseChain is I think it's supposed to be leverage on Ethereum, right? That's one of the whole things. Like HEX was leverage on Ethereum. PulseChain's also sort of leverage on Ethereum. Both L1s. Ethereum did all of its gains on a proof of work system, so you had miners that had to dump their tokens to pay for electricity. Whereas in PulseChain, the validators don't necessarily need to dump their tokens to pay for electricity costs. Now, one thing I was looking at is this ETH BTC chart. So I drew out a couple of things, and this is the halvening right here. So I think it's like May 10th, May 11th, 2020. This was the last 4 year cycle halving. Like we just had one, what was it, April 20th, a couple days ago. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is you can see right here on the halvening was pretty much almost the bottom of this, of like a local bottom of this hex, not hex, Ethereum to BTC ratio. So that's one thing I thought was super interesting is like everyone was waiting for the halvening, waiting for the halvening, waiting for the halvening. But it looks like Ethereum's like traditionally been like it doesn't do good right at the halvening. You actually have to wait maybe like 3 to 6 months after, and you'll start to see a parabolic rise. Same thing if we zoom back, like the 2000 and what was it? 2016 halvening. That's right, 2016 halvening. You had this was down in, I think it was down in May as well. The chart doesn't go back that far, but it kind of just goes to show like right after the halvening, you had some volatility, you had it kind of creep up, and then boom, massive dip. And this is still after the halvening has occurred, right? And then right after you have that dip, basically a parabolic uprise, right? And sort of this is what we're sort of looking for. That's what we're hoping for with ETH, sort of this cycle, and it's sort of looking similar in a way, where right now you have the halvening. ETH is kind of bottomed out, like locally bottomed out, like it hasn't come all the way back down to like 2020, 2019 levels. But relatively speaking, like it's creating some new lows here actually, and people are buying it up with some wicks. But what I'm looking for is in like 3 to 6 months, potentially Ethereum starts to take off because this is traditionally what happens after the halvening. Especially when you look at the macro market cycles in general. Let's go back to the bear market. So this was in June. You could see ETH basically just fell off a landslide during the entire bear market, and then as soon as sort of ETH, I think ETH's bear market bottom was it was slightly different than Bitcoin's. Like I want to say ETH even held up Bitcoin a bit in the bear market. I remember ETH when ETH 2.0 was coming out. It was actually, I think, was it right? I don't know exactly where it is on this chart. September potentially.
It should be 2022, right? It's the end of 2022.
End of 2022. Yeah, somewhere around here. Either way, whenever ETH 2.0 was coming out, that was one of the things. Like right sort of ETH bottomed at when below $1,000, start to creep back up, and then you sort of had like a buy the rumor, sell the news when ETH 2.0 came out, and it sort of held itself up during the bear market. Um, Now that like sort of how the macro crypto cycle works is like once you have sort of like the Bitcoin bear market bottom, I guess that's when your bull market commences, and you'll start to see Bitcoin gain more dominance and gain more dominance and gain more dominance. Like if we, I'll pull it up hopefully in a little bit, but if we look at Bitcoin dominance, it's been like the altcoin dominance is falling, Bitcoin dominance is it's doing its thing. It's pretty much nearing like nearing not close to nearing close to a local high, let's say. But if we're just looking at this ETH BTC, like Bitcoin, it has its market cycle, so it usually shows strengths towards the beginning of the bull market, and then towards the end you start to see money flow out into things like Ethereum and other altcoins. So this is what we're looking at. I'm waiting for this chart on Ethereum to sort of have a parabolic uprise, and then we can start to hopefully see more gains in PulseChain. Especially now we have certain wallets I heard bought a bunch of Ethereum, so I don't know what the Ethereum's going to top at, but you could probably do the math on how much money that wallet's going to have, depending on the Ethereum price, and whether or not that money is going to get injected into Pulse Chain is just speculation. But we've seen certain addresses actually bridge over tons of money at certain periods of times, even recently. So
Yeah, let me bring that up real quick too, because I think
yeah, please.
it's good. It's timely to talk about that piece. So this is a post from Storyteller. Shout out to Martin Storyteller 17. What about ETH? If Ethereum does exactly 3.5x its previous top, we should hit a price of 17K. ETH has outperformed Bitcoin ever since its inception, but forget about that for a second. Let's stick to 17K as a top for ETH in this bull run. Sacrifice wallets currently hold 170,518 ETH, which at 17K would be worth $3 billion. Wow. With
It's
a
a lot
B.
of money. Yeah.
That money, that $3 billion. I don't know if I'd like to see a follow-up to, I don't know if anyone's ran the numbers of, you always have these conversations around what if, those funds were just $1 million a day into Pulse Chain, or, started out a little bit over time and either incremented or decremented different values strategically and stuff like that. And is it, yeah, I mean, all this speculation, we have no idea. It may do nothing, but it did seem like there was a trade made and a bet on Ethereum when this happened. So yeah, it's I don't know. Like I guess what are we waiting on as far as, there's different things you can use to watch the wallets and track and look and see what's going on. But 17K, can you, even at 10K, like 10K, 12K, 17K, at least $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion worth of ETH maybe coming to could go to Pulse Chain, could go anywhere else, but it's the Pulse Chain, the SAC address and all that stuff. So there's a pretty tight correlation there. I don't know. What do you think we'll see in the next 3-6 years? I mean, with as many SAC movements for a while, none notable that we could see. But what do you think is going on in that space?
So I think it's kind of become a little bit of a meme, but the whole like shake out the weak hands thing, and I think that there is definitely truth to that because let's say you come in with a bunch of money and you decide to buy up a certain asset, like you don't want people like just like extracting value like as soon as they can, as much as they can, as fast as they can. You probably want believers and people who've actually been there through like through the mud, through the rain, through the shine, through everything, right? So I think this is partially a part of just like we'll see what happens, right? Like it's all sort of a waiting game. Like if ETH tops out and some of this money flows in, and you still have the believers in Pulse Chain, which those few who are actually going to stick around for that while will probably, if that money gets injected, be rewarded very well. But I know like there's people who potentially have shorter attention spans who won't be able to like they won't be able to focus, or maybe they don't have their conviction, or I think that's one of the biggest things too is like you don't have your conviction set. So by the time maybe ETH tops and money starts to flow into Pulse or PulseX or whatever else, HEX, you might have already dumped your bags, right? Going to chase something else that is actually doing maybe green candles in that moment. But I think this is one of the plays where you could, it's a time game, right? Where you're just sort of waiting. and you're just letting the market do its thing, and you'll probably just end up rewarding the believers in the very long run. If something like a bunch of money were to get injected into PulseChain, right? So that's sort of how I'm looking at it. But even if you're looking at Richard's projections, like he said 240K Bitcoin. I remember I thought I saw a tweet like that.
Yeah.
Even if you're looking at like that ETH BTC ratio, if that goes back to zero point 0.1, so right now we're below 0.05, so basically just a 2x. Yeah, I'll show you guys here. So yeah, if this can go from basically zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.1 up here, basically back to its 2021 highs back here, or 2018 actually. Even if it can make new all-time highs versus 2021, or even get close to 0.88, if you're talking 240,000 Bitcoin and you get anywhere close to this like ratio between like let's say zero point 0.8 to zero point 0.1, you're talking like 200,000, or sorry, $20,000 to $24,000 ETH. So 17K would be great. 20K would be even better. Even something like 8K, 10K would still work. But yeah, I think people are like, maybe they haven't even realized that like there's billions of dollars potentially on the table, and whether or not that like it comes into PulseChain is speculation. But I mean, like there is some sort of track record going, and I think you sort of you want to keep the reputations of your product solid. So we'll see what happens, but definitely one thing I'm watching is this ratio, especially knowing that certain addresses hold a bunch of Ethereum, and that they'll potentially become enriched by just holding ETH, and maybe some of that trickles down into these other assets. So yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to is the Ethereum price, because it might indirectly affect you someday if you're holding PLS, even through liquidity bonding, right? Like even if let's say a certain entity provides liquidity, between like a lot of liquidity between Pulse and ETH, maybe as the ETH price starts to rocket and shoot up, Pulse just gets dragged up as like liquidity bonding Hart's law, and if you start to see even more and more people FOMO in, maybe there's other catalysts as well that we haven't even talked about, right? Like maybe we don't even know they exist, type of thing. Like I brought up this point before, but looking back, like if you were to try and predict all these sacrifices and all the hype and all these narratives back in like 2020 when HEX came out, or 2019 or 2000, yeah, 2019, you probably wouldn't have been able to do so. Like if you would have had to have been maybe some sort of like crystal ball genius to predict like all the different narratives that like arise. But I think something similar will happen to PulseChain, where like right now we have like sort of, I think the original narrative was like cheaper fees, faster chain, like just better everything pretty much. Like when, especially when ETH was proof of work, like we had proof of stake. It's pretty much just like Ethereum but better. But I wouldn't be surprised if something comes into the future where we start to see new narratives and new catalysts to pump price. I don't know if I'm pretty sure the Richard Hart wallet is still in the works, but I don't know if there's going to be a sacrifice for that one. And I don't know if there is going to be a sacrifice, if there's going to be some sort of incentives for different tokens, like maybe even incentive token for the wallet and stuff like this. But I think Richard's still working. Like I remember listening to a Twitter space from a while back, and he was talking about his maybe it wasn't a Twitter space, but either way, he was talking about his museum and stuff like this. So I still think he's still working on the back end, and who knows what happens with some of these things being built. Like maybe the museum ties into PulseChain somehow and generates hype somehow, right? Who knows? It's pretty, like you can't really predict this sort of stuff, but I think there's gonna be a narrative coming, and we're just gonna have to wait for sort of the bull market to really commence. It's nice now that we've sort of passed the halvening date, so like everything's inching closer and closer and closer every single day. But I think it's just a waiting game, and just like keep your conviction, because I know like especially now with everything sort of being down relative to even 30 days ago or 40 days ago, people are probably freaking out a little bit. So just like keep your conviction, know what's happening, because like even people are fighting the Richard Hart ETH trade and just making fun of it or whatever. But I think like it's long term plays, right?
It's always so weird, yeah, when I see like people criticize like a trade that was made like a couple months ago or so. It's like what, like definitely a time and place to criticize a trade over time, but it hasn't nearly had enough time to get any information of whether that was a good or bad trade. And everyone in the world thinks Ethereum's going higher. Why, it'd be unreasonable in a lot of people's minds. Even again, that I don't think that comes from, it probably doesn't come from a objective view at it. But I'm just talking about PulseChain in general. Like, and it is hard right now. Like, onboarding is hard right now. Like, you could even ask the question, why would anyone on the outside want to join us? Like, and I want to lay out this case, like the good and the bad part. So they Google for HEX and they see the old chart. To the layman, doesn't look like, it's coming back up, right? And the new chart that nobody will even bother to find. They get on Twitter and see the emotional outbursts and the drama and all the stuff going on there. It's like, I guess now they get a better idea of which HEX to buy now that, Ethereum, or again, you still got plenty of people speculating on Ethereum HEX and maybe it'll do well and all that stuff too. But all that came at the expense of the people who've been waiting for years for, this thing that just no one ever expected to happen, never expected to go down that far. So it's almost at a certain point, it's like, where do I send them? Where would I send somebody, a new onboard, to get a look at something that I think is amazing? And a lot of other people share the sentiment, but everything pointing to the outside just looks like something you wouldn't want to get into, they would, red flags, all that stuff too. They go to PulseX, they go to app.pulsex.com, read for 10 seconds, give up, because there isn't like a nice, gentle interface to show them how to do trades and stuff. They got to figure out what IPFS is and stuff. And I've created Go Real DeFi to try to help with that too. But again, that's not the official website. That's just a community thing that, again, I think it's probably helped a lot of people too. But the main websites have needed to have the community step up, gopulse.com, build stuff to solve a majority of these onboarding things that it just makes everything's just hard to do. And then people talk about, oh, why won't Crypto Banter talk about PulseChain? Why won't he talk about HEX? Like, why? What good news do we have to share with him? What would we give him to talk about? It's besides, you're so early and you just keep waiting and delay, like all these principles that we know and all that stuff, which, and again, we know it's great, but people on the outside, they have nothing to go on except a bunch of bad news articles and people telling them, which they kind of look right at a certain point. People tell them over and over, stay away from HEX, scam, stay away from PulseChain, never touch that thing, all that stuff. I mean, they keep looking, and the EHEX thing happened. They keep looking more right. The haters keep looking more right at this current, time frame. So again, I think Destiny says this changes and we do glory, but that's just as of today. It's kind of like a lot of things are just a mess. It is so hard to just tell people who are in crypto at all. You almost have to get them not to even be in crypto and to never heard of Richard, never heard of PulseChain, to even be interested enough to give it a chance. So I know everyone here supports true DeFi. We want real DeFi. RH just calls us. I'm RHMaxy for his ideals. And I love these products, but man, like, if we see consistent green candles that don't just like go up a lot and then just, that kind of thing. If the founder starts marketing again, starts doing streams or stuff outside of just tweets, which maybe that's all that's, all a game for right now, but, and somehow all of the HEX charts and stuff actually point to the latest one and the better looking one, and all the information becomes less confusing. And there's only so much the community can do. At a certain point, the official websites, the official places, the dApps and stuff, they have to be able to give people the information they need to not click away. So we can't do everything. I know there's a lot of people spending a lot of time building these products, and we have founders and just people pouring time and effort and money, their own capital into this thing. It's just hard. But until then, we just got to make it easier, man. We got to make it easier to get people into superior products. And they are just and Richard, as he kind of alluded to in that one funny tweet about the airline bags and stuff. So we need some amazing narrative to unfold with green candles and to really get everyone into chasing the mad gains. The same thing that happened with HEX back then, but now just on a much bigger and sustainable scale. And I think that is unreasonable that it doesn't happen. It's not happening right now. It hasn't happened yet. I think it's unreasonable that it wouldn't happen. And that's what all this pain and frustration is for, right? Like, we got to get that PulseChain big payday, the new big payday, the PulseChain big payday type of thing. I'm taking it back. So, what do you think, CryptoCom?
That is the thing. Like, I saw a tweet from Sami, and he was talking about the HEX chart, and he was like, anyone just objectively looking at this chart would just assume, if they knew nothing else, that it was rugged by insiders, and it's probably a scam, and maybe it did like some good gains in the past, but it looks like it's dead now potentially, right? So I think there's and to your point as well, the green candles, we're all usually in crypto, like I want to say 99% of people, besides the ones that say they're in it for the technology that like Richard Hart loves to make fun of, but everyone's here for the mad gains, right?
Man for the tech and the price performance. We can say that. We can say that one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But um I think, yeah, most people, like, they wouldn't necessarily, you wouldn't buy something if it kept on going down and down and down, unless you obviously knew where it was going and you had a bunch of conviction. But like new onboards right now, I think one of the best things is just green candles. How those will appear, like, it's really up to speculation. Like, you could probably think of a million different reasons why, or a million, maybe not a million different reasons why not, but definitely a million different reasons why there would be green candles coming in. And that's the thing, is like, when it seems impossible, when it seems like it'll never happen, when everyone's kind of in the depression, like, this is the whole market cycle, right? Like, I think I sent you a tweet with sort of looked like PulseChain a little bit, where you had like, this is the suckers rally, and then like right after the depression. So, and then people they get sad again. So I think the market cycle, we're about to turn around. We'll see what happens, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, here's the tweet. Um, like PulseChain, I think with the amount of layer ones and layer twos, and even I've heard of layer threes now coming out, um, like it's not like 2021 when PulseChain was being announced. Like, if you go, if even if you went on Dex Screener in the bear market and you scroll through the amount of layer ones, it wasn't the biggest list in the entire world. Now it's a lot bigger. Like, it's probably at least doubled in the amount of layer ones since the bear market. So there's a lot more, like, I guess, saturation in the market of layer ones. And there's a lot of them that are faster. There's a lot of them that are cheaper. But will they pump as hard as PulseChain? And I think that is what's going to bring the people in. How that happens, I'm not exactly sure. But I think this chart sort of describes where we are in the market cycle. It's like disbelief, right? I think we definitely had the depression, right? Like, PulseChain was down at like 3 thousandths of a penny or whatever it was at. Like, Hex bottomed less than a penny, and then we had our little rally with the rest of the market. And now, like, people think they're in disbelief, exactly like the chart says. So I'm looking at PLS like this as well. Even Hex is now, like, it's gone into deep value. Like, I think one thing that could bring a new onboard in is if you could understand how great of the gains and the principles of Hex, and you're looking at the chart and you see where it is. It's almost like, unless you just really think it's 100% a scam, it should almost be a no-brainer if you have zero allocation to start potentially picking some up. Because exactly, Crispy Man, every single time Hex has gone below the red dotted line there, or maybe it's orange, or maybe it's green. I'm not even sure. I can't really see it too well.
There's a couple lines, but I think one is orange, one is green.
Okay, cool. But yeah, anyways, that bottom line there, once you see Hex sort of trail below that, it's in deep value, and that's where we're at right now. So I think, like, that's one of the biggest cases. Like, if especially if you're here right now, it's hard for people to believe in things that are down. Like, it's easier to buy into something when it's gone up 500, 600, 9,000%. Like, it makes it super easy for people to onboard. But if you could sort of explain it, even if I really like the Peter McCormick and Richard Hart stream. I really like to show people that one, and I tell them, like, pick a side. Like, who do you think is right? Like, I don't even know if it's a debate or if it's just like Peter smashing Richard the entire time, and Richard, like, trying to convey something. But yeah, I think, like, if you know someone who has zero allocation to Hex or PulseChain or any of the products, like, now is the perfect time, pretty much, to sort of onboard them in, especially if you can sort of if you can build up someone's conviction for green candles, I know it's like probably not the easiest thing to do, but I think that is one thing PulseChain could have that other chains don't. Maybe not as of this moment right now, but I think hopefully PulseChain solidifies itself as one of the top gainers in the bull market. And when people ask like what's so special about this chain, you can say, well, look, it did mad gains basically, right? So
It is the chain of mad gains. You could tell that story. I mean, there's a lot of good stories to tell. We have the ability to onboard people. It's just before it was so organic where we were like, look at the chart, the thing is going up. Look at the people, they're all happy. Look at the founder, he's doing all this amazing stuff. Isn't he a cool guy? Don't you want to buy his stuff? Like all that was so easy before. And then once you have, months or years of just like drama or red candles or not hitting, you seeing other stuff going up around you, it's like, okay, you basically just need to, I think the most people is like a one-on-one, like a either, I'm sure people running courses and stuff and trainings and stuff are able to get people's attention and show them, hey, you need to spend some time understanding this. But before, that whole like easy, oh well, look, it's so obvious, like you'd be stupid not to buy this coin, that gave us such a huge advantage before, and we just can't do it today. I can't go on. I was doing, back in a couple 2 or 3 months ago, it was so easy to get on just a general crypto channel. You could super chat people. Hey, what do you think about PulseChain? Do you think it'll keep going? Like, what do you think about HEX? Like, look at the chart, look at the numbers. Now, like, how you gonna? You can't even do it like that. The whole opportunity to showcase one of the things people care about the most in this in crypto. You can't do that unless there are green candles. You can't just be like, oh, look at the chart. Look at the chart now. Like, it went up a lot and then it went down a little bit. And nothing against the chart. I mean, I think the chart, just I'm not a TA guy, but I think you could still sell people. I'm sure that people have plenty of ways to sell people on the chart and the potential and the deep depression and stuff we talked about with HEX especially. But we don't have all those easy avenues. We haven't had them for a long time. We didn't even have green candles until relatively recently, like 2 or 3 months ago. So there's definitely a value prop with PulseChain. There's definitely all these different ways to sell HEX as this amazing DeFi product that is hopefully we'll get the store value narrative back this cycle as well. It's just so much harder than it used to be, and we can't scale it as well as we can, as we could when the things were in the first glory days. Hopefully we have the second. Like I was talking the other day. Hopefully when we'll be talking in a year or two, the new people in the community, and they'll be telling their origin story, and they'll be like, oh, did you come in for the first 10,000x or the second 10,000x? Like that kind of thing. That's what I want to see. I want to be able to like tell that story, but looking for where we are now, all we can say is, wow, look at the potential, look at the values, look at clearly what the founder has in mind, and clearly what the community is going to manifest, if nothing else. Like it's harder, but it's still a story worth telling for sure.
And I think especially with sort of Richard being not streaming as much as he used to, I think that's kind of got people down a little bit as well. Like they don't have that direction, like someone like directly in their ear telling them all these products are scams and trash and they have bugs and they get hacked and things like this. Like you can do it on Twitter or through a tweet, but I think definitely Richard's streams conveyed a different sort of message through a different sort of tonality. But now that that's not as frequent or as often, like maybe people have sort of like lost direction and gone somewhere else. And you're right. Like it's easier to onboard people when your chart only goes up and to the right since inception, versus PulseChain. Sort of we're having it's a different chart than where HEX started. But we'll see what happens. I think like it'll be one of those things where like green candle induced FOMO. Like once they start coming, hopefully they're here to stay. But like we were saying with like the macro market cycle and stuff, like I think we're still waiting for things to turn around. And once like we said, like there's a big ETH trade happening right now, and like maybe people are focusing too much on the short term of that. But I don't think Richard's goal is to make like a $200,000 on a Ethereum long within like 30 days. Like I don't think that's his objective. To just like like squeeze out a little bit of value. Like he's out here he's out here trying to capture value over the long term. And even if you look, yeah, here's a good example of Bitcoin as well. So yeah, Bitcoin did a 92x after the 2012 halving, 30x after the 2016, 8x after the 2020. How many x's will it do now? So like maybe it's conservative to say like 4x's from here, 2x's from here, if you're following the pattern sort of thing. So I don't know where that'll bring us, but maybe we shoot way past 100,000, right? And I know like um, especially in the bear market, people did not believe in Bitcoin. Like they lost all hope. Like not everyone, but lots of people lost all hope, and like now everyone's a moon boy for over 100K. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think like it's like the same thing as Hex. Like we just have to wait for the market cycle. I believe last time it basically traded sideways. Hex traded sideways for 100 plus days, and then after the halvening, then it started to pick up, and maybe it was after the Bitcoin top, then it started to pick up, and then it started to move. So you see things like this is like the market cycle, it sort of has to play out before like and retracements are good. Like I saw Hands Crypto. He's a good technical analyst, especially for like PulseChain and stuff like this. Retracements are good because then you can go higher later, right? If you just shoot straight up for like, let's say you went 365 green daily candles, it's not very like charts don't necessarily work like that, right? So when you have retracements, it actually allows you to go higher later. And this is sort of how I'm looking at it. If you guys want to feel bullish on Pulse Chain, definitely go follow Hans Crypto on Twitter because he posts some good TA on Pulse Chain. So
Got a question here from Big Boy Garms. ETH has been losing to BTC since 2017. Can PLS do better?
So I think definitely, I think that is the whole point. Like Richard talks about it. Like if you watch his streams, like he says, he'll say things like uh, just to, I'll see if I can remember exactly. He'll go, it completely slipped my mind right now, but um, yeah. So price performance of ETH was a 10,000x. Hex was modeled sort of at, like the 10,000x that was sort of like on Hex's website for a little bit was sort of modeled after what Ethereum did. And now that we have PulseChain, PulseChain is a better version of Ethereum. When ETH did its 10,000x gains, or I think it was even 30,000x from like the last time I checked it, so it's probably even more now. When it did most of its gains, it was during a proof of work system. So you had the miners that earned inflation and then sold it, and it still did insane gains. So theoretically, like if Pulse Chain has better game theories, if I think the whole point and it's what it's designed to do, and what Richard says is it's well within the realm of possibility, but it's up to life and chance. Basically, is how I would quote Richard on that one. But definitely, like I think it's definitely supposed to. We'll see what happens. But that is definitely the play. Like I think the whole point of crypto, the whole point of why we're in these altcoins is you want to outperform Bitcoin, and then you want to outperform Ethereum. And then if you're not outperforming Ethereum, then you should have just stayed in Ethereum in the first place. So I think Richard knows this, right? He's obviously in Ethereum, and I think he definitely wants his product to outperform Ethereum. If you guys remember I'm gonna say Richard's not really antics, but he was always doing his sort of outrage marketing with him bragging and stuff. Like I called the top, all you guys bought the top. Michael Saylor bought the top. He'll brag about how much gains Hex did, and how much it did versus Pulse Chain. Sorry, how much gains Hex did versus Bitcoin, and how much it does versus Ethereum. And I think he's gonna want to do similar things, bragging about uh, the new products, right? Incentive. I'm sure we're gonna see some posts about him bragging about, oh, look at the incentive token outperformed this token, Bitcoin or Ethereum, however many X's, right? So I think how Richard would say it is, they're well within the realm of possibility. Again, like he uses these words, especially because I think he doesn't want to just come right out and say, like you're gonna make a million trillion dollars X's if you invest in this product, right? But it's definitely well within the realm of possibility. So
Yeah, I like the way you put it. Like if it's not going to outperform, the other things such as ETH, like why not just buy ETH? that kind of thing. It's got to be worth the risk. It's got to be worth the X's and stuff. Hex on Ethereum too. I want to cover that real quick. This is it's kind of like I said the other day, like when Richard tweets something that's either sometimes, if I don't get it at first or it annoys me or whatever, I just ignore it and I'll come back later. And usually I appreciate it more. Like if I'm like, I'm not in the mood for this, all caps deal, or like, you should be thanking me thing, or whatever it is. There's a lot of really good anecdotes in between. But anyways, instead of having this emotional response and getting upset and letting it do all this stuff and going to tweet about it, I usually just, okay, I'll save it for later. I'll go look at it later. I don't need to interact with or engage. I'll go look at it later. This is one in the thread. They made a bunch of different tweets that I think there's two that I retweeted. And this is one of the ones that I thought was the most interesting. And you also, I think you brought it out, highlight as well before too. So if you like HEX on Ethereum, better than HEX on PulseChain, cool, good for you. Maybe if people provided liquidity for it, made a liquid market, fees got low and stayed low, it could gain value versus HEX on PulseChain. As always, it is your choice. You do you. He said it a couple different ways before. One of the tweets before, like, he's never said HEX on Ethereum won't have value. He's only said either it will have value, or more recently, or not, it will have value. He said he can't think of a reason why it wouldn't have value, or more recently, he said it could have value. Here's how it could have value. If things got better over there, or it could get dragged up with the other coins, regardless, all that stuff too. A lot of people like HEX on Ethereum, is still for the whales or for pool staking or whatever. People have bags. A lot of people want it to succeed. Other people could care less, ignore it, whatever too. I said, I believe it was a sacrifice from Richard. It wasn't something he wanted to do, but he knew he had to do it in order to shift the focus on PulseChain. What do you think that in general for HEX on PulseChain and HEX on the Ethereum chain too, the ratios I've talked about where maybe they'll drift farther apart over time and settle somewhere, but they're just not quite ready yet. There's just too much drama, just stuff going on in the last couple of months that has just made everything kind of unstable. Where do you think they'll end up? Like, do you think over time they will settle and they'll be closer together or farther apart?
It's a very good question. It is really hard to say exactly where that ratio will end up. What I think though is I don't think EHEX will just forever stay. I think it'll maintain some sort of ratio. Like, I don't think it'll forever just drown against PHEX. Maybe it does, but maybe there's some degen out there who's like, oh, this thing looks cheap, I'm gonna buy some more of it, or some of it in general. But I do think you're probably gonna have someone buying HEX from Ethereum somewhere. So where the ratio will end up, I don't know. I think, like, for any new onboards and stuff, like, you're probably better off just doing the HEX on PulseChain and not really worrying about the whole like ratio thing. But if you're looking to like sort of like gamble or like bet on EHEX, like wherever the ratio might end up, I'm not really too sure. But it definitely dropped a whole lot. I liked this tweet from Richard because I think it is a good point. Like if you like HEX from Ethereum better, then people should have provided more liquidity for it. Because all the PHEX came from people owning EHEX, right? So all of it got snapshotted over from users. So why didn't users go and provide more liquidity for EHEX if that's what they wanted to do, right? It seems like the market, like they did go ahead and use their own hands and maybe feet, who knows what they did, but they definitely went and provided liquidity for PHEX and PulseChain and PulseX and Incentive. There's a lot more liquidity for those tokens than there is for EHEX. So, I mean, this tweet definitely makes sense. I know the Ethereum gas fees have kind of dropped off a little bit. And I wonder if maybe there's some upgrades down the line where they really start to like maybe fix the gas fees, and if that does anything to EHEX. But I don't know if I don't even know if Richard wants EHEX to go actually straight to zero, or I think he just wants people to stop wasting their money paying Ethereum validators and either come use the PulseChain network or use that money to buy the PulseChain product. Because I think if you scroll up in this thread as well, he talks about like basically how much money was potentially lost to Ethereum validators. It might be at the very top of the, yeah, tens of millions for ETH gas. So to transact, the ETH miners got rich because of hexagons. If the money went towards, I think if it went towards hex instead of ETH gas, the price would be a lot higher. So, um, definitely, like I think that's objectively true. If you're doing $100 transaction and you pay $20 for a validator to sign it, then you sort of like you've only done 80, you've only putting $80 of your own economic energy into the thing that you actually want. Whereas if you're coming over to transact on PulseChain and you have $100, chances are, especially with the liquidity, you can get good order execution, and you could probably get at least like 99% of your value like exchanged. So I think it definitely makes sense. Definitely confusing for sort of people who don't really know anything about like the ecosystem, sort of like maybe new onboards or people who can't keep up. Um, but he definitely makes some good points here. Definitely transact on the newer network that's cheaper, and use your economic energy wisely. I wouldn't be surprised if like some of the Ethereum validators like laugh at how much like fees they've earned from like these like hex people, right? Like the little hex call or whatever. So
The other I think notable piece in this I thought was interesting. He talks about they don't care what harm they do, screaming about how they bought higher. It's everyone else's fault but theirs. So just the point. I mean, there's different ways you can look at that. Oh well, what are you talking about? The sacrifice, or are you talking, what do you mean bought higher? Like, that aside, I think the one interesting point there is like the whole ideal of complaining about taking too long, or capitulating, or just being hateful or negative and stuff on Twitter or in the community or however is not helping onboarding, as I kind of talked about earlier, as far as that stuff. So it's one of those, I don't know if people actually think something's going to happen if they yell loud enough, that sort of thing. But it's kind of counterproductive, right? It's like the louder you yell, the more you're telling people to stay away. I think that's the point he's trying to make too. Whether you have, real grievances or not, whether it's not fair, whether all that stuff aside, just the fact that if there are more people yelling about they don't like something about a coin, more people coming in could and may well see that, and that could actually detract from what they wanted to happen in the first place, which was price go up or things get better or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting piece that I hadn't quite seen put that way. And I was like, oh, that is like a good point of like the more that it happens, the more that harder it is to onboard, which is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. Interesting. So I want to go back to, man, this is I think this is my favorite tweet today. This is wow. Just put aside the fact that PulseChain can run on its own. It's very well decentralized. We got 50,000 validators all across the world. We got community building all these projects, a lot of economic energy aligned for winning. We got content creators. We got everything we need as far as a foundation for this thing to be primed. It's been primed for a while now, right? And then we got whales, some benevolent whales. I'll point out a couple. You got the SAC stuff, and you got Godwell and stuff like that too, who have a ton of ETH, have a ton of supply of different coins and all that too. What in general though, how would you frame it if you were talking to a new person who doesn't know much about PulseChain? The title of the stream too, the PulseChain's on a mission. What kind of mission do you think we're on? We kind of talked about, we talked about the glory side and all the interesting things that happen and stuff too. And we could talk about the ideals, the privacy, the freedom to transact and associate and all that stuff too. But what do you think, overall, a general explanation of PulseChain? What does it mean as far as when you participate on this kind of network, when you're waiting and you never have the certainty of anything, but you feel like there's just something here that you cannot ignore and you want to be a part of it? What is that piece that makes you so compelled to be around here, and as in a mission oriented way. That's the way I think about it.
One of the things for me is the freedom of speech and the freedom to transact and sort of stuff like this, and like sort of those values. I like the censorship resistance that PulseChain has, and I like how our community is sort of like we agree with most of these. I want to say most of us agree with all these ideals of like freedom to transact, freedom of speech, like freedom of assembly, like things like this, right? And like when you're in these like crypto ecosystems, and like Richard's even brought this up in the case and stuff like this, right? Like it's you're trying to make the world a better place, and I think like it says in your tweet like we're going to fix the world. Um, and I think one of the ways you can do that is actually giving people their freedoms. Like Richard says that like I'm fighting for your freedoms, and he actually is. Like at the end of the day, like he's doing that, and I think we're on a like yeah we're on a mission to sort of like make mad gains, and as well as like I think definitely like the freedom of speech, and those are one of the things that like I really like. I think it's sort of like the SEC. I've said it before. It's like a blessing in disguise a little bit, where like they came after the wrong crowd a little bit, and hopefully like we get the regulatory certainty from it. So
Yeah, it's one of those. I said it before about why I think a lot of people are here. It's definitely people here want to get rich or richer, wealthier, all that stuff too. But I think the things you can learn in this ecosystem you just can't find anywhere else, and that's why it sucks about when I see but I mean it's said all the staking narrative's dead, all this stuff. I mean we see plenty of stakes still being made, plenty of people talking about it. I did polls, and there's plenty of people who have made stakes this year, knowing everything that's happened and all this stuff too, trying to lock up the cheap T-shares and stuff. But the principles that these products are built on, that's the thing I feel frustrating is when I see, the things haven't happened yet that we all would like to happen. The things we're, again, we don't expect, but we're like everything looks so well. Like why wouldn't this happen type of thing. And in the meantime, I hope people aren't learning the wrong lesson. I hope people aren't learning this. Well, everything's just speculation, and it doesn't matter what you do. You should just buy whatever random coin and get out and get in, get out, pumping up like deal. I hope people aren't learning that. I hope they aren't like literally the sense of the word degenerating. I hope they aren't like literally degenerating into none of this matters. I'm just going to get my money as fast as I can and get out, when the entire place has been built on the ideals of delayed gratification and freedoms and privacy and not being at the wheel of. I love that. I tweeted. I saw somebody posted today a video of Richard talking about stop giving your money to centralized entities. Like they love having it all in one place so they can tell you whether you can use it or not. All that stuff. I hope those ideals aren't being weakened, and I want people to get rewarded when they buy HEX and they stake HEX and they buy PulseChain and they participate in this ecosystem. And a lot of people who have been here for a while, they don't feel like they've been getting rewarded. And again, you could say, okay, well, they haven't waited long enough, or nobody knows. We're all just kind of playing this day by day type of thing too. Or everyone just assumes that I don't need to think about this. It's just going to happen eventually and it's all good. However you feel about it, I think whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And the people who are still here and haven't sold or did whatever to benefit from what's been happening, all that, the ups and downs and stuff, they'll be like, why wouldn't they be new people? Why wouldn't they be new people come in who haven't been through all that stuff, who don't have all these notions of what's right, what's correct, they're just interested in the principles. They're interested in that. They're interested in making money. And we come in and we kind of refill the spirit of the community almost. Like we have people who've been around for a while to keep the ethos, and we have the, RHMaxes of every kind, and we have all the people who are just here to, majority of the time support the ecosystem, to kind of show them and teach them and all these things. But there's no scenario I can think of where the community just gets emptied out and there's nothing left and nobody wants to be here. To me, that doesn't make any sense. There's too much that's been built around it. There's too many people that won't give up. and there's too many new people who haven't came in yet to be shown like what the power of this place really is. So I think that's the message I hope we're able to send. If it needs to be one-on-one onboarding people, if it needs to be, whatever atmosphere, but I know it's harder to do that just with marketing, and if they do the research, they're gonna probably get bad information and all that stuff too. But if we're able to convey that message to new people coming in, and we're able to get green candles, I mean that's the key, right? Like that's how it works.
And that's exactly it. Like I think you'll always have people here like supporting Hex, Hex, building on PulseChain, supporting PulseChain, tweeting about it, stuff like this, right? And that's the community is one of the most important things in crypto. Like even if you go look at other communities, like I think it's fine if like we have our little infights here in PulseChain land, let's say, because like even energy is energy, right? So like whether like negative energy is probably not as good as positive one, but maybe there's somebody who can see past sort of the negativity and actually like extract some sort of value from it in some sort of way. So you never really know with these sort of things. And on top of that, like when you're looking at like the coin, right? Like who's going to be buying the coin, who's going to be buying the dip. It's probably going to be members of the community, right? Like chances are like you might have a couple of new onboards coming in to buy the dip, right? They're like, oh, finally this thing dipped. Let me scoop some. But definitely like the members in the community, the people that are actually here building are going to be the people actually like supporting the price and stuff like this. And I think that's why PulseChain will always have value is number one, because it's layer one. Number two is because you'll always have sort of the community backing it, right? You'll always have people building on PulseChain, transacting on PulseChain, deploying new things on PulseChain. What do we have? I think the United States Constitution is on PulseChain. So tons of stuff's on PulseChain now. So and it's only gonna I think it's only gonna get bigger, and it goes with the network effect, right? I think we're gonna have to wait for these guys to like sell low and then buy back their bigs higher, and we are just waiting for the green candles. But I do think like the community is one of the most important things in our whole ecosystem, because those are the people who are actually even the influencers. Like I don't know if that's the right word, influencers, but if you look at them, like I think they're usually net positive and stuff like this. Like they definitely they bring attention to certain things that maybe otherwise would have been overlooked or not looked at hard enough, right? So I think it's great. Like we have more than enough people, like probably way more than other communities. And even if you look at other cryptos, like there's nothing going on. Like I've been in other discords for other communities, and there's really nothing happening. Like there's a couple of things, right? But compared to Pulse Chain, especially like how we have like it's sort of community run, community driven, you don't really see things like this. Usually you see sort of like different ideas of like we'll give you a. I think we do have grants on Pulse Chain as well. Like I think for the Pulse Chain tour, there was some sort of they were giving out some stuff to for people who were gonna build. But I know a lot of other chains, like there's probably people probably wouldn't be incentivized to go and build unless there was actually like an incentive right there for them. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think like it's hard to say, but yeah, like Pulse Chain sort of it's in the shadow right now, right? Like even if you look at things like Solana have kind of taken off, and like Sami, like especially the all bear market, like Solana was getting thrashed, uh, it was doing horrible, right? And Sami called it the soy lana and stuff like this. But even when you see things like this sort of take off, like it might hurt some people in our little ecosystem. But I think like our time is to come. Like and it's already too late basically once you've seen like these coins sort of take off. Like it's not $30 anymore or anything like this. So um yeah, like it doesn't actually make sense to like sell your bag that's gone down all the way down for something that's up 1,000%, right? So I think like people who believe and people who can actually see where this is going, people who have done the research, are they're going to be rewarded, because that's usually that's how things work, right? It's like the more effort and the more time and the more effort and time you spend researching and developing your expertise and your conviction in a certain area, like you're eventually like, it's not even luck, like you've just
You make your own
you've
luck.
yeah, it's exactly. So you've positioned yourself correctly, and you've done the research, and you know sort of where things are going. And like we said, like PulseChain's been primed for a while. I think we're just waiting for a couple other things in the market cycle, but definitely like hopefully we can get some green candles to sort of bring in some new users, because I think that is one thing. Like once you see the red candles go in, you start to see more drama happen, and everyone's just net happy once the green candles come in. So hopefully yeah, hopefully things turn around. But I definitely think just looking at that Wall Street cheat sheet that you have up right now is even like, it's even a good indicator, because I think it is true, right? Like you look at Bitcoin and stuff, like it pretty much like not one to one, but it pretty much respects it. So
Yeah. Got a comment here from David too. Yeti buys 170,000 ETH. Very delusional. I think that's delusional, I'm going to say. I'm not sure.
I think so.
And then it makes integrity of the entire ecosystem sus. What do you, just in general, I mean, it's, what would you think about a whale that, you know, from another L1 that buys a ton of another coin from you know, let's say from ETH. A PulseChain could be ETH stolen, it could be whatever it is. Whale buys a ton of that, and the community believes, you know, they're benevolent. They want to bring it to their chain, in this case, PulseChain, and they make a trade like that, and they just wait because they, you know, we speculate the price will go up, and the funds will go into the ecosystem. What about that? To me, I don't really see anything, and I'm sure I'm a little biased here, just in general, because all the things I've seen and whatever's happened in the ecosystem, but that doesn't strike me as sus. It just strikes me as they're someone with a ton of money that's making a trade in a direction that may end up benefiting the ecosystem if it goes well. And it's not with anyone else's money, because, you know, all that money that they acquired was given away freely, and, you know, and all that stuff too. So it's not even, again, it's not even a part of the ecosystem. It's part of that whale or that SAC address or whatever story, like whatever they want to do with it, whatever they see fit to do, they can do. Is there a misconception here with, or is it just literally there's not a lot of good news to be had, so every move kind of is looked at in a negative light? Like where's the confusion there?
It's probably has to do with also a little bit because the price of ETH has gone down. Like if ETH was at like maybe 5,000 right now, I don't know if maybe David would still have the same thoughts, but maybe he wouldn't have the same thoughts. I don't exactly know if it makes the ecosystem suspicious by a certain entity purchasing a whole lot of Ethereum. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if that's if that I don't know if that makes sense, but another thing is I don't know if the God whale wasn't he a Genesis ETH whale? Is that right? Or wasn't there another
Godwell was the Genesis whale, I believe. Yeah.
That's right. So I sort of, maybe you could look at it something like this is like obviously that's the particular address that purchased 177,000 ETH, was it? Um yeah, maybe they're not Genesis ETH or anything like that, but I'm sort of looking at it in the same way where like you place a trade, maybe 5 years goes by, 4 years goes. I'm not saying like Richard's waiting 4 years to deploy the ETH, but just in the case of the God whale example, like he deployed the funds years later, right? So sort of like this, where you can make a trade and then move those funds into somewhere else. I don't know if that makes sus.
Yeah.
Negative ETH tweets, yeah, it buys ETH.
Yeah.
It's convict.
I think there's three different things that I think are common for people to look negatively upon, you know, trading or funds moving back and forth or whatever. One is what you talked about, where the trade we don't know the final result of it. Like we don't need to know. I literally never even thought about the SAC funds after it happened, until I actually saw them moving. I literally had no expectations. I was like, oh yeah, whatever he's going to do with this stuff, I don't think it didn't even occur to me like this would even be a plan. Honestly, it didn't. I had no expectations. After I saw them moving around, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Well, maybe there's something there, but I still don't have any expectations. But it wasn't a part of my thesis. It wasn't a part of this needs to happen for PulseChain to be successful. It was never a part of that kind of thing. Like I knew maybe it'd be helpful or something, but I didn't think much about it. Let's just say that. The other piece is negative ETH tweets. To me, this is the simplest one to explain because Richard does a lot of things for marketing. So if the ideal that he tweets that PulseChain is superior, that Ethereum is whatever, and all that stuff, I think looking at it in a way where I don't look at it where everything he says is like supposed to be like written in this book of like a dictionary, like a definitions. I look at it as he is marketing the chain. And of course, he's going to be biased in one way or another. And if he has to throw something under the bus, he's going to do it, no matter what that is. So to me, if that's what people are thinking, David or otherwise, my explanation to that I've always, to me, it's, just always just popped in there. I'm like, oh, well, no matter what he's talking about, he could be talking about Solana, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just a marketing thing, the way I interpret it. So to me, there's no conflict. It's just like, I know what he's trying to say. I know what he's doing. And I know he's not talking to me, and he's not talking about like as if this is going to be written down. He's not teaching a class on crypto when he's talking about all this stuff. He's marketing. That's why I take that one. And the third one is, people may think, oh, I don't want to have any entity. I don't want to even have the idea of relying on anyone else to pump this ecosystem. This is DeFi. I'm here for like the people are in, and they're doing the stuff. And to that, I can kind of sympathize of like, okay, everyone has their own spectrum and preference on amount of centralization or not. We talked about the idea of the mental models of like centralization for price can be good versus having a decentralized network is what you would generally prefer. But to me, the way I look at it is there's just all these players in the game. They all have different amounts of power, aka capital, coins, things they have, and they're using them in whatever way they choose to further whatever agenda they have. So it doesn't matter who has the coins and what they do with them. It's, I guess, how I'm playing my game, and whether it benefits me or not is whether I decide what moves to make and all that stuff too. So anyways, those are, I just wanted to set the stage. Those are the three different things I think people either confused or frustrated with or otherwise because it conflicts with something else that they're thinking. But I think some of those are more easy to clarify than others.
And as well, I think Ethereum makes sense as the asset you would buy if you were trying to potentially grow your stack in a way. Especially if you had a bunch of ERC20s in the first place. I don't know if offloading those to like a Bitcoin network would be the play. Especially there's probably counterparties involved in order to do that, unless maybe even wrap Bitcoin on Ethereum's counterparty risk. So you probably wouldn't buy Bitcoin if you wanted to like make some sort of trade with crypto, and you probably wouldn't buy any of these other altcoins either. Like you would probably focus on like the layer one Ethereum. So I think there's that portion to it as well, and like sometimes you can't let things like that get in the way of your price appreciation, right? Because like even if Ethereum has high gas fees, like if someone coming into crypto with $50 gets chopped up $40 for a fee, it's kind of a big deal. But if someone comes in with 10 grand and they pay $50 for a fee, yeah, it sucks a little, but like relative to the amount of money they wanted to actually like enter, or if they were putting in $1 million or $10 million, like a $50 gas fee, it's pretty insignificant. Like I think for the most part, like Richard's tweets are just aimed at like the common people and people that don't have like billions potentially sitting in Ethereum addresses.
That's what I was going to say too. He said before, the quote from him was like, I'm here for the new people. I'm here to onboard them. I'm not here for you. You're already in. So I'm not, I always think of that too. He's not always speaking to me. He's speaking to, like you said, the common person who maybe not as in yet or doesn't know much about the ecosystem. He's trying to like, sell them on the benefits and stuff. Yeah, good point.
I think so. And that is the other thing is like lots of the people who are already in, like they probably already know, or they could probably guess or like make some sort of inference from somewhere. But like I think he is trying to speak to the new people. And like I was saying, like what else would you buy if you were trying to grow your stack? I think people are also getting mad that he didn't buy Ethereum, or like didn't buy other things, and like he just sold everything short and then didn't buy back the bottom. They're like, oh, we're so mad we didn't lose minus 60%, and then like gain a whole lot after that. But um, I think he's doing his plays like he's probably he's been doing it for a long time, so he probably knows exactly what he's doing. But we're just gonna have to see how things play out. But yeah, I think he's trying to speak to like to the common person who's not already in, who maybe doesn't even understand why Ethereum gas fees are so much. Because I know when I would bring in onboards to crypto, they were trying to do swaps with $20 or something like that, and they would be like, "Why am I paying a 50% fee? Why is this a 50% fee? This is a scam."
Because you're broke, bro. Step it up.
Like,
no, don't say
yeah,
that.
they were
They
using
may
like
not like that.
It's like, yeah, because you're broke, man. Get your money up.
Look, I told you minimum 120. You brought $20. This is not my problem. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's just trying to speak to like, because yeah, I got asked the question like, why is this app trying to charge me 50%? And I'm like, it's not charging you 50%. You're paying validators because of how busy or not the network is. And he's like, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense at all. Can you go into that a little bit more? And then you have to sort of explain it. But you know, yeah. So I think yeah, he's just trying to make it easy, like for the new on board, for someone literally with like $100. Because I think most people come into like, if you look at the sacrifices, most people weren't sacrificing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like very small percentile of people were actually doing like greater than 10,000. Most of the people were in the $100 region. Like a majority were just $100. Like throw it in, let's see what happens. Like let's make a 10,000x on the $100 from SAC type of thing. So maybe that was their thought process. But I think that's
what could possibly go wrong. Well, I mean, I mean, to the credit, people sacrificed. I mean, again, just real quick, I just want to say this while I'm thinking about it. People say, you know, the debate is what should we count the X's from SAC rate or from the bottom? I'm still on the bottom. I still think that. I still believe that even though majority of people probably, you know, are again expecting to get the X's from the SAC rate, I still think that if it's almost like we're rewarding people for not buying the bottom, when I don't know. For me, I count from all time low, because maybe everyone who actually bought below SAC rate prefers to count from all time low, because they're like, no, that's you know, I was in that boat. I was the one who bought when it dipped. What do you think about that, real quick too? Sorry to interrupt, but I'm curious. Like, how do you think about counting X's? I'm in the camp of all time low, but
I always measure it from the all time low, like from the like where we had the lows after the SEC and stuff, because everyone had an equal opportunity to go in there and buy it. Like it's not like it was like this daily wick or hourly wick or anything like that. It was like plenty of time to go in there and like make your buys.
That's what I mean, I'm not sure there's a right answer, but I feel like that one makes the most sense to me, and apparently you, and I'm sure other people too. But a lot of people are like, oh, we should count from SAC rate. I'm like, I don't. Only people who want to count from SAC rate are the people who didn't buy it lower than SAC rate, I would say, which is totally fair. I could see, like, you know, having that attachment, but I don't know. If you didn't buy below SAC rate and you're still here and you still believe in the place, I don't think there's a lot of people like that. I imagine if you believed in it, you would have, you know, bought lower and stuff like that too. And I hope everyone has Madison Gaines who did that, and or otherwise gets a good price. But anyways, and another point I want to make before we wrap up here: disbelief. You know, Kong says, believes we're in disbelief phase. Just everyone imagine, if we're in disbelief, do you know you're in disbelief? Like, does it actually feel that way? Or do you think that, like, I'm trying to, like, what I'm trying, not sure the best way to say this, but like, you know how, you know, you can look at any part in the cycle and you're like, oh, are we in the depression? I don't know. Like, I just want my coin to go up. Or are we in disbelief? No, this thing is done. Like, it's not going up anymore. I don't think most people actually know what they're in. I don't think they can actually step out and look at the bigger picture and see what how they're feeling matches to the market cycle. So if you don't think you're in disbelief, maybe you are in disbelief. And like, I think it's good to like step out and be like, okay, well, I know where I'm at now, being aware of that type of stuff. So I just PSA, maybe if maybe you might not believe, you may not believe you're in disbelief unless you actually step out and see the broader picture.
It's like the slow boiling frog analogy, I think, a little bit, where like if you're just chilling and like you've been in here for so long, like you maybe you don't exactly pick up on exactly what's happening. But it's like, let's say you like kind of came back and like you were dropped into that boiling water, you would sort of see like it's hot. You know what I mean? But maybe if yeah, it's like a slow boiling frog, right? Like if you're just sort of chilling in the market the entire time, maybe you don't exactly realize what's happened, like the market's hot or it's cold or whatever. But if you get dropped in, like yeah, you'll realize. So maybe it's a little bit like that. And I know Sami has really good tweets on like sort of gauging the market cycle, like surprisingly good tweets on like he'll say like look at this euphoria, and like he's probably right on that sort of stuff, and he'll say, well, PulseChain has entered its depression, or he'll say things like this. And like he's usually quite accurate. Like he's actually quite good at gauging sort of the market participants. Maybe he gets like a ton of messages where like he can sort of like sense the euphoria or sense like the fear in the market as well. But definitely like I think definitely lots of, I'm sure everyone watching this probably follows Sami, but definitely pay attention to like his market cycle indicators, because I think like once euphoria comes around, one of the people I think one of the people that will actually bring it up will be your friend Sami. So
I don't know how he does it, but I'm sure glad that he does. And he has some of the best mental models I've learned from. I've clipped his videos. I put them on the channel. I don't agree. He even he did a video the other day where he was talking about like even me and a few other people and stuff, and being like, anyways, the point is like I don't always agree with everything he says, but like I like to hear it. And I love his perspective, and I love learning from him. And I think he knows that, and I think a lot of other people in the community can certainly appreciate that too. So he does a lot of great work, as well as you, CryptoKong, as well as you. That's I think we wrapped it up on that one, man. Where can people find you and learn more about your work?
yeah, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at CryptoKong145. You can sort of see the yeah, you can sort of see it right there, just like my handle. So yeah, Twitter and YouTube. You'll mostly find me over there. If you need to contact me, you can shoot me a DM on Twitter if you have like questions or something. Like I'm happy to answer your question or anything like that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. So
Awesome, man. Any closing thoughts? Yeah, we're gonna go to the moon, right? It's always just one step closer.
I think closing thoughts, just we will win. I think that sort of sums it up.
We will win.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Well,
I think yeah, the people that have their conviction, probably the people watching the stream right now, that are actually like that have their sort of mindsets flipped. Like they're not exactly like shaking out the markets, like done with PulseChain, but they're actually they're excited for the future. Like I think those are the people that will win the biggest, let's say. So
yeah, if you're in this ecosystem still, and you're being a net positive, may you have the maddest of gains. I truly wish that for all the people putting in all the hard work and yeah, making contributions for sure.
definitely.
All right, everyone. That's all we got for you today. Scivive and 5555. We are out.